President leaves for Mozambique tomorrow, and it's a story we'll also be following up for you as Kenya seeks to expand its trade between itself and the country of Mozambique. It's time for us to get into our interview segment, and we are going to be talking about road safety. And like I told you, on Engine Behind the Power tonight, we have George Kevin Nyaga, the Director, Roads Safety Volunteers, and he joins us in studio. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I want us to start this conversation from the point of why are you passionate about road safety?
Okay, the reason as to why I'm so passionate about road safety is I feel very happy when I'm saving lives on the road.
Okay.
I feel happy when I see children smiling to and from school, and knowing that they are safe, and by the end of the day that they are going to achieve their dreams, and road users are going to get to their destinations safely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what does it involve when you talk about road safety?
Road Safety Volunteers is a community-based organization, and mostly what we do is road safety campaigns.
Okay.
Then number two, we do a lot of rescue operations and rescue coordination. If your vehicle stalls, if there's an accident, and police are needed there as soon as possible. If you are maybe involved in an accident that needs an ambulance, we'll try to mobilize for that very fast, and not only in Nairobi but the entire country, especially the major highways. Then we do a lot of information sharing, alerting Kenyans what is happening in terms of traffic, in terms of incidents, and also doing some audits so that in case there is an issue that needs attention from the relevant authorities like signage, road marking, design, then we are able to raise the issue and follow up, because most of the people come across issues that they are not able to know whom to talk to. Absolutely.
So assuming one gets an accident or they're involved in an emergency in a road, for example, let's say we're in the middle of the way to Kakamega. So how do you get a message so that you're able to rescue them?
One is we are able to get that information through Twitter at Roads Volunteer.
Okay.
Most of the road users know that handle, so they're able to tag us. Facebook, you can also talk to us, Road Safety Volunteers. And we are in around close to 60
So how are you
WhatsApp
able,
groups.
my question would be, how are you able to marshal help for them, for example, because you get it on, let's say, Twitter or Facebook? How are you able to marshal support for that person that is in trouble?
We have a database of police officers in most of the parts. Number two, we also have volunteers in most parts of the country. We have contacts for ambulances, for fire brigade. So in case you tell us that there is an accident in this and this particular area, and this is what is needed, then we're able to mobilize that very fast and ensure that even if we are not going to get there physically, then we are going to make sure that something is done and there's action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the architecture of roads, because it is something that has come into sharp focus, particularly bearing in mind the situation we saw at the Narok Maimahi Road at a place called Karima. In your road safety campaigns, do you focus on the design and architecture of roads?
Not really much of that, because we are volunteers, and most of the people I work with are volunteers. So we may not have much of the technical or the professional bit of it when it comes to the designs, the engineering and all that. But then there are areas that you can be able to clearly see that there's a problem here, and maybe these are the suggestions that can be put in place so that then we have changes and we have better flow of traffic or safer roads.
Randomly, let me ask you, for example, Salga is a black spot.
Yes.
Everybody knows that. And there are other black spots in the country. From the point of advocacy, from where you sit, what do you do as your group?
We do campaigns.
Okay.
I've been to Salga, including in December, that last accident that was very bad. I was part of the rescue. And when we are there, we try to check especially the behavior of drivers and what could be causing these accidents. And mostly you realize that the issue is not much on the road, but how the drivers are behaving. If you are going downhill, maybe you are freewheeling, you are doing a very high speed that you are not able to control your vehicle, there's a continuous line, probably you are trying to overtake. Such kind of behaviors are the major problem. So when we are doing our campaigns, then we try to address these issues. If mostly this problem lies with the truck drivers and the PSVs, then we try to focus on that. If it's a problem that touches on pedestrian, then we also try to focus on that. If it touches on border riders, then we also focus on that in our campaigns.
All right, quite interesting. Focusing on the accidents, particularly that happened during festive seasons, and we're headed to one already. This weekend it should be Good Friday, then heading over towards Easter. And there's always this devil on the road that ends up happening. My question for you would be, in your audit, because you talked about audits and looking at how the operations are in the roads, what would you say about PSV drivers?
Well, quite a majority of them are not very careful on the roads. I would term
a majority of them
as a bit reckless. And number two, then the other problem lies with the passengers. Because again, you realize in most of the cases, when a driver is driving recklessly, then most of us will always keep quiet. And if you try to talk, I've been thrown out of vehicles in a number of times because I try to talk to the driver and they become very rude. And when we get to a roadblock and you tell the police, everybody turns against you and says, you are wasting our time. This vehicle is being driven very well. And it becomes very difficult for a police officer to take action against that particular driver. So you have two options. Either you remain there, risk your life, or you get out. And for me, in such a case, I opt to get out. So it's a 50-50 situation. The driver is to blame. The passengers are also going so silent about this behavior, and that is why these accidents are happening in large numbers. And
we'll talk about advocacy in terms of ensuring the passengers as well as road users are able to know, the safety measures they ought to apply on the road and why they should tell drivers to slow down. But still on that aspect of PSV drivers, there was something that the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Fred Matiang'i, alongside his transport counterpart, James Macharia, introduced last December after the accidents, and that was retraining of PSV drivers. And right now, applying for a PSV license, you would need to go back to, an entire training process, and as well as drive for hours, about, I think, 1,300 hours for you to be given the PSV license. Are those measures you support, and do you think they will ensure that there's sanity on our roads?
I fully support them, and I think the CS and NTSA are doing quite a good job, and we are heading in the right direction. The reason being, if we talk from the fact point of view, most of these PSV drivers, if you sit with them and talk in a very calm situation, somebody will tell you, I was a conductor at a bus stop, then I became a conductor in a matatu. Then the next thing I would be told, go within the estate, pick passengers, then come so that we can go to town or to the other route. And finally, they end up acquiring driving licenses. So most of them were not trained. And this was part of the problem. So with the new curriculum and the system, the digital systems that are being put in place, then there'll be no shortcuts, and I think this will really help. I understand they're also being trained again, which is quite a good move. So I support that move.
You fully support?
Yes.
President Kenyatta at the same time announced the withdrawal of the National Transport and Safety Authority from the roads. You would say it's a move that supported a lot, that got a lot of support from the public, obviously owing to the run-ins the public has had with the National Transport and Safety Authority. But that in itself, because they've been out of the roads for about 3 months now, do you think it has added to security on our roads, or it was a negative move?
I'm still working on that audit to see what changes have been there, because again, we have to compare if it's January 2018 and January 2017, we have to come to February, we have to go to March, so that we're able to have those statistics. But I would say that NTSA was heading in the right move, in a way. And most of the people, what happened is that they felt that NTSA was giving a lot of focus on speed and alcohol. And there were other issues also that needed equal attention. For example, let's talk about issue of stalled vehicles. If I give you an experience, almost every weekend I come across stalled vehicles. And sometimes drivers are very relaxed, and some are even asleep in the vehicles. Last weekend, we had a similar incident. By the time we called police to come and try to assist us so that now they enforce and we have this vehicle off-road, which was a lorry, we already had 2 accidents at that particular point. And you wonder, after the accident, the lorry was towed, yet it had been there for hours. So I think there was a bit of a problem with the balance between all the issues that needed focus, stalled vehicles, the road marking. We have a big problem when it comes to road marking in this country. You drive at night when it's raining. I mean, it's so risky.
Yeah.
So there are quite a number of issues that were not given much attention, but they also needed to be looked into. But NTSA was heading in the right direction. And what I liked about NTSA and what I still like is the issue of coordination. In that, one of the things that was made easier is that if today you come across a case of maybe a commercial or PSV vehicle maybe being driven recklessly in a certain place, you are able to report in one platform, and they have all the database, and they're able to call that particular circle or the owner of the vehicle and address that issue, which I used to find quite difficult. If a vehicle maybe is risking lives in Meru and it's heading towards Nairobi, then you wonder, which police do you call? Do you call Meru? Do you call Embu? Do you call Nairobi? But with NTSA, you are able to call one number, and that vehicle, by the time maybe it gets to Embu, or maybe if it's heading towards Meru, there's already somebody waiting for that vehicle.
But let me ask you, because you appear to be in defense or believe that the National Transport and Safety Authority was headed the right way. But of course, there were concerns from members of the public that NTSA has converted our roads into toll stations. And there appeared to be a network or an intricate web of corruption that was being perpetuated by the National Transport and Safety Authority. Did you share those concerns?
I have worked with NTSA.
Okay.
Because I'm a stakeholder, or Road Safety Volunteers is a stakeholder in road safety. We work with Kenha every day, we work with police, we work with Kura. And I know most of the people may not have been very happy when it comes to enforcement. I do not want to talk about corruption because that is not my line. If I come across a case personally, then I'll deal with that as an individual. But like I said, there were strengths and weaknesses. In a way, they were heading in the right direction. Then there were weaknesses, like I've said, the issues of design, stalled vehicles, and all that. So it was a 50-50 situation again.
As we wind up, because we close to winding up, the partnerships that you're having with this volunteer organization, do you feel like there's adequate support from government in terms of the job that you're doing?
I have run this organization for the last 7 years, and I must admit that it has been quite challenging in terms of financial and logistics. Okay. And it becomes a bit tricky to get financing from the government, from what I've tried, and it's because, you know, for the government to give you money, then there has to be a tendering process. Most of the times we target corporates, who again, most of them will tell you, in our CSR, we do not have road safety as a key component that we support. Most of them will talk about education, they'll talk about health, but I wish all the corporates could take this as a very, very important line and try to support it, so that then we are able to be given more capacity and help more road users, so that we reduce accidents.
Without these roadblocks, without, you know, requisite support from government, and, you know, corporates not committing to your cost, some of them, where do you get finances to, you know, fund your activities?
I'm a small businessman in the line of events, marketing, and roadshows. I also do tracking. So most of my profits actually go toward this. Then I have a number of friends who support in a small way. Whatever somebody gets, they can send that through the pay bill, and we are able to top up. But like I've said, it's quite challenging, but I've been trying to manage, and I would say it's through the grace of God.
All right.
Yes.
Lastly, Kinungi and Kimende.
Yes.
Apart from being black spots, there's still the question of zero visibility, and particularly when it is raining, making the Nairobi-Nakuru highway a very dangerous spot. In terms of your, what you would say, cooperation with perhaps the corporates that are coming on board and what you're doing, what do you think will be the lasting solution to ensure safety at Kimende and Kinungi?
One, proper marking, probably with the lighting reflectors, like some which have been done on North Airport Road, Eastern Bypass, Northern Bypass. When we have proper marking and those road stands that normally light, then it becomes a bit easier to be able to see the road clearly. Number two, when it's very foggy, then we always advise motorists maybe to use the Maimahi route. That's another issue. Then number three, we also need to watch our behavior and the attitude and the way we drive. You drive, I do around 10,000 kilometers every month, and I can tell you over 50% of Kenyan drivers are not drivers. They're just moving vehicles from one point to another. They have a license, yes, but they are so reckless that you can be able to predict this driver will not get to a certain destination. So we need to behave when we're on the road and be careful and mind other road users and plan accordingly so that we are not always in a hurry. People have spent 14, 15 hours in a traffic jam. And it's because everybody wants to overlap. They don't think about their oncoming vehicles. So these are some of the things that we need to think about.
Let me just give you the camera there so that you can have your last word.
Accidents are painful. Please, when we rescue, we come across people who are carrying gifts for their children, anniversary cards. It's so painful to collect bodies from vehicles every weekend just because somebody decided to drink and drive. Let us drive carefully and let us know accidents are the most painful thing.
Fantastic. This message is very much timely, bearing in mind that we're headed to the festivities. On Friday, it will be Good Friday. Saturday, on Sunday, according to the Bible, Jesus Christ is risen. And on Monday is the celebration of a risen Jesus Christ. So keep safe on the roads. And most importantly, like he says, if you feel too tired, it's not a must you travel. You know, just sit tight and stay safe on the road. It's time for us to take a break. And of course, when we come back, business is up next. But thank you very much, George Kevin, for talking to us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.